But it is a night when parts of this incredible country are burning hot and fires are threatening life and property in the southern states. I'll get you the very latest on the emergency level bushfires in South Australia and Victoria, including Kangaroo Island shortly. And where to now for the people of Bargo and Balmoral in the southern highlands of New South Wales. 40 homes lost, a fire still threatening the region, and the terrible loss of 2 firefighters in the middle of last night's blaze. The bushfire crisis in this country, fuelled by what now appears to be a 1 in 100 year drought, has now gone beyond the heartbreaking point. We often lose lives during bad bushfire seasons. We've seen it before. That's the physical nature of this country. It's often bone dry during our summer months, and our fires transform into firestorms with seemingly very little prompting. And the danger for so many in the hinterland and in rural Australia is frighteningly real. But when volunteers who, without question or hesitation, bravely place themselves at the fire front, almost like human shields, to save the property of complete strangers, and then those firestorms claim their lives, well, it's just awfully gut-wrenching. What happened last night near Buxton in New South Wales, it is just grossly unfair. And of course leaves 2 wives, several small children and extended family members rightly inconsolable. But it's made me think hard today about why people like Jeff Keaton and Andrew O'Dwyer do what they did. Without any compensation, they put themselves on standby, to drop everything when asked, to risk their lives in such hellish conditions for those they have never met. It takes someone very special to be a volunteer firefighter. Would you do it? If you would your family allow you to do it? Which makes those 2 wives just as special. Throw in the fact that all of those who volunteer for the RFS right across this country spend countless hours trying to raise money to fund the brigade for everything from breathing masks to boots. And because they're only volunteers, the families they might leave behind get zip. Tonight, a crowdfunding petition is the only thing likely to replace their main source of income. It's now reached $12,000. It doesn't compare with what the families of fallen, salaried emergency service personnel would receive in similar circumstances, in any way whatsoever. Which made me think today, why the hell can't we not just fund these brigades with the basics, but then pay these men and women for what they do? We are a wealthy country, and we find money for third world countries as well, as you know, always. We spend money in so many other ways, in terms of silly research projects, armaments we'll never use. What about submarines that will be completely and utterly redundant on completion? We spend money on stone monuments. We find the money when required. But our firefighters, who we ask to stand up for us in risky conditions during this time of year when bushfires are inevitable, get nothing. We rely on the goodness of their heart and their bravery. It just doesn't seem right. You wouldn't need $1 billion to fund the Rural Fire Service. These people do it for nothing. They do that for nothing already. So you wouldn't need $1 billion. It wouldn't require too much money. But if the narrative out there amongst the Greens, amongst those scientists who say that we've got bushfires because we're going through climate change, if that is the truth and we're getting more bushfires, let's just presume for a second that is the truth, and I don't believe it. Let's presume it is. Why can't we find some money for these brave men and women? Just all we'd have to do is do an audit of some of the money and some of the loan agreements we have right across the world, and we'd find less than $1 billion for these people. And I noticed today, as I was jotting down my thoughts on this subject, that someone else had a similar idea.
Can't continue to just give up those who, many of whom aren't being compensated at all. They still have to put food on the table. They still have to pay their mortgage. And so there's a range of measures that could be looked at, whether it's tax breaks, whether it's one-off payments, whether it's some form of leave payment.
I'm glad he said what he said. Full credit to Labor leader Anthony Albanese. Maybe the deaths of Jeff and Andrew is the sad trigger we needed to begin the conversation, as Albo did today, and start remunerating these gutsy firefighters. And to those scheduled on duty over this coming weekend right across this country to replicate the courage we've seen so far this season, we thank you and we want you to keep safe.